first draft. Hi, everyone. It looks like this just restarted. So we are talking about plotters versus pantsers as part of first draft, which normally is Alexis Ann and Mary Chris Escobar and myself, Julia Kelly. Today we have two very special guests who are very dear to us as well. So we're going to introduce you all in one moment. I'm going to kick it over to Alexis Ann to start things off.
Hi, I'm Alexis Ann. I write erotic contemporary romance, and I am a planner.
Lachelle, you want to pick it up?
I'm Michelle Collins, and I write romantic suspense and contemporary romance, and I am a plotter.
And Mary Chris.
Hi, I'm Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction, and I am mostly a pantser. So fly by the seat of my pants.
And Tracy.
Hi, I am Tracy Puckett, and I write young adult, new adult fiction, and I am, for the most part, a pantser.
And I am Julia Kelly. I write contemporary romance. I've written historical in the past, and I am a reformed pantser who is learning to become a plotter. So I feel like I'm kind of in between everybody right now, bridging the gap. So we already mentioned kind of what style everybody goes along with. So maybe, Lexi, if you want to start off why you choose that particular, why you write the way that you write, kind of why you lean towards the plotting side of things, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of reformed like you. I've gone back and forth on things. I've always kind of taken a plotting approach to things. I like the 3-act approach, so I've always started off with character arcs and turning points, and as I've gotten further into my writing process, especially as we've worked on this romance anthology that Julia and I are a part of coming out later this year, there was a lot of planning involved, and I forced myself to do more planning, and I kind of sort of fell hard in love with it. And now that I'm writing more suspense and action, it's easier to know what you're doing if you already have it planned out. I really like the process of knowing every time I sit down what the next scene is already, that it's already kind of laid out for me. So I'm basically a planner now. I don't pants anymore.
How about you, Tracy?
Well, I'm shaking my head because, Lexi, there is nothing in this world that I hate more than knowing when I sit down what I'm going to be writing. I absolutely dread having to sit down at the keyboard and write something that's pre-planned. I like to learn with my characters what's going to happen, and I like having that experience as they have it. So I could not disagree with you more. I absolutely hate knowing what's going to happen. I like the experience of learning it. So.
Good, we have some dissension and debate going on right now. You, I think, are
we'll have a throwdown in a little bit.
Absolutely, cage match and everything. Michelle, I think when I first met you, you were the first out of the group who was just like, nope, this is exactly the way I am. And I think that you pretty much stuck with that, right?
Yeah, I try to be a pantser, but there's absolutely no way. I'd never get through a manuscript if I didn't plan things out.
So do you think it's more to keep you on track, or you just have to see the full story before you start sitting down?
When I sit down, I pretty much have a story in my head of how I want it to go, but I would never be able to get it there without, I have to see it, I guess is what I mean. Yeah.
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Sure. Absolutely.
To Lachelle, and I've lost my question already. Okay, yes, I've got it. While you're writing, since you are a heavy plotter, if you come to a point where you've already planned, yeah, this is going to happen, but you're in your first draft, do you ever say, okay, I'm going to change my mind and write
Absolutely.
something else? Okay.
Absolutely, and a lot of times, this might sound crazy, but a lot of times the character will lead me a different way.
That doesn't sound crazy because that's my entire writing style. My characters
she supports this.
Yeah. My characters take it and go, and I find out after they do, so it's okay.
Yeah, I plot things out, but if I'm being led in a different way, I will go back and change my outline.
Okay.
Just so that I stay on track.
Okay. Very cool.
How about you, Mary Chris? Kind of where do you fall into all of it?
I definitely am. I'm a little bit of both. I'm a hybrid. But it's always interesting to me when people talk about character arcs, because that's something I've never done. I write a really rough first draft, and I, much like Tracy was saying, kind of let the characters take me where they take me, and then often I end up going back and having to add details and flesh out characters because I know more about them by the time I get to the end of the first draft. I have a character right now who I am writing in my current work in progress who is kind of evil, and I'm not sure why. I haven't figured that out. I have no idea what her motivation for being evil is, but as I sort of keep writing, I'm figuring that out a little bit. So a little bit of both what Tracy and Michelle both said. I write kind of by the seat of my pants, but I absolutely find out and follow my characters and have to go back and flesh out like who they are and why they're doing what they're doing.
So kind of staying along the lines with emotional character arcs as opposed to maybe outlines. I know for me, I tend to get about halfway through a book and figure out what my character's motivations are and then have to go back and revise everything. So I actually started plotting specifically to avoid that and try to cut down on a lot of that just emotional heartbreak when I realized I was 45,000 words into something and needed to go back and totally rewrite it. So I'm wondering if you guys are doing more kind of like scene-by-scene plotting, like this is what's going to happen, or these are the points at which my characters are going to decide that they emotionally are at this place, or they're going to make this switch and this change mentally. Maybe, Lexi, do you want to start?
Oh, yeah, sure. So emotionally, one of the things I've started doing, and I really like doing it, is I actually write a short story first, at about 10,000 words. So it's not 45,000 words like you were just saying. So I spend about 10,000 words getting to know my characters. Sometimes it's a really great 10,000 words and I might keep it, and sometimes it's just me teaching myself the characters and I end up scrapping it and going back to the beginning and starting over. But those 10,000 words usually are where I get to know all of my characters, and from there I really know these are the events that have to happen in order for this story to get told, in order for this character to realize this, to come to this turning point. These are the things that have to happen. And so then I plot everything out, not in too much detail. I mean, it's not like a scene-by-scene synopsis, but these are all the things that have to happen, maybe 20 things in a 50,000-word book, and then more things for a longer book. And that's my plotting process.
Sorry, we have our first commenter. It's very exciting. So I'm talking to that person right now. I am paying attention, I promise. But I'm also being a terrible host. So, what about you? What about you, Tracy?
What was the question?
You're dealing kind of more with the emotional. Well, since you pants, maybe it's a little different. You are dealing with the emotional side of your characters. So when I initially asked, are you kind of outlining and knowing where your story is going to go, or where your characters are emotionally going to go?
I feel like with my characters, I feel like that's a little different than plotting for me. It's like a whole different ballpark because I do know my characters before I start. I may not know everything about them. With my latest book, I knew my male. I knew him inside and out, but I was still trying to figure out my female all the way to the very last word. So it gets through that first draft, and then I have to go back and kind of figure her out. I didn't have so much figuring him out, but yeah. Definitely, it's a process that happens along the way.
Sure. Michelle, you're kind of the queen plotter amongst us. What about you? What's your motivation behind kind of figuring these books out before you even kind of put pen to paper?
I don't know what my motivation is, but for me, I kind of see my stories in my head like a movie first, so I know what's going to happen and like where I want to go with it, and then it's just a matter of putting it on paper. And so I kind of outline it like the major plot points of a movie, kind of in my head. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you talk about outlining in the sense of a movie, do I think of my writing, even though I really don't plot, I think of it in acts. Like I think of a first, second, and third act. Would you say that's something that you think of, Lachelle, when you're making an outline? Do you kind of have an arc in that way?
I wouldn't necessarily call it an arc, but yeah, sort of like that. I pretty much go scene by scene, and there are certain things that I want to happen in this scene, and so yeah, I kind of go scene by scene, but everything's not in that outline. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There is a certain element of pantser in there, but not much.
Within the scene, like you know what you want to happen in the scene, but you don't have the scene mapped out. Because I know that there are people that outline to the level of detail where they know sort of like exactly what the conversation is going to be in the scene, and you're just more saying you know what's going to happen in the scene.
Right. I know they're going to have a conversation about whatever, but I don't know how that conversation is going to go.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm much more of the sort of, I think that Tracy, you and I have used in the past a similar character arc system, and I can never remember the man's name who
Michael Haig.
Thank you.
Haig. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You've saved me.
What was it?
Michael Haig.
Okay.
Yeah, he kind of he adopts a system from screenplays where it talks about kind of hitting emotional points in the story, and it's not necessarily a strict outline where you're plotting, scene by scene or even act by act. It's more like your characters are going to hit certain points, and there is the
I'm actually working on it right now.
I still have
for Breaking Balls. I actually I came home from RWA and I took everything that we learned in his workshop and I just put it all on my computer. So every time I start a new book, I just print everything out again and then I write in notes for that book. And that's a lot of how I have started structuring things. And I really like it. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, it's nice if you're kind of a hybrid because it's enough plotting that you kind of know where you're going to go, and you do have to figure out. My biggest issue is I never know how I'm ending my books, and I've never once written an ending before I got about 75% of the way through, and then typically I'll go and write the ending, and then I'll kind of meet in the middle. But it's great if you're a pantser because it gives you enough room to kind of really play with it, and you have to hit certain points, and so you can kind of get there on the way, and you can maybe make some adjustments too. But I found that when I stuck to that, it was really, really helpful.
Yeah, I've never written an ending before anything. I go in order, beginning to middle to finish. But of the 15 titles that I've published, I only ever had 2 endings in mind, and I hit both of those 2 endings. But for the other 13, I had no idea how they were going to end. They just ended, and that's how it went. I never had an idea. Never.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by these authors who can just, who in interviews and things like that say, no, I know exactly how it's going to end, and I know I'm going to get to that point, and you've lost me. so you're like that, Lachelle?
Yeah, I always know how it's going to end.
Teach me a way.
I like knowing exactly how the first scene and the last scene before I start writing. I feel like I'm writing blind if I don't know exactly what's going to open and draw the audience in and set the stage, and exactly how I'm going to bring it all back around and what the last sentence is. I don't know the last sentence, but that feeling that's going to bring the story around to the end, I need to know the very beginning and the very end before I start writing.
How about you, Mary Chris?
I do often, it's really interesting to listen to you guys talk about this because I do often know how I want my story to end, even though I don't plan it out. And that's not to say that it doesn't change. But I do often know where I want it to end. I struggle with beginnings. I rewrite beginnings a lot.
Never anyway.
I'm laughing because that's the title of the book.
I almost heard it.
That's awesome. That was not an intentional plug, but yes.
I was going to do it. Lexi was with you.
So yes, I write never-ending beginnings.
Oh,
this is sticking with you forever.
Absolutely.
It's good. It fits.
So, do you guys ever get jealous of other people's process? Do you ever look at the pantsers and think, oh, I really want to be able to do that? Or do you ever look at the plotters and think, that would be fantastic, like just to know where this book is going?
No way.
I must be the girl always thinks that the grass is greener on the other side, because whatever I'm doing, I think I should be doing the other. Because, like Tracy was saying, when you're a pantser, you discover the story along the way. And there's something so genuine about that writing. You get to know the characters along the way. You experience it the way the audience is going to experience it, and that's awesome. But then when you plan it, you know what all the subplots are going to be and the innuendos, and you're going to do everything to draw it all back together, and it's all so planned out. And so I am always the grass is greener on the other side, and I wish I was the other person.
I think I'm one of those people who I assumed that the grass is always greener, and then I realized at some point writing is hard work, and no matter how you look at it, I think all of us are kind of sitting there slogging and having those days where, you know, you can plan and plan and plan, or you can be as, you know, freewheeling as you want, and inevitably you just have to sit down and do it. And some days that's really, really hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
We all agree on that.
Yeah.
That much we can all agree on. Yeah.
Other than Trace is why writers drink. I mean.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Don't worry, I get my hefty dose of caffeine, so I'm good.
I was going to say, I've seen Tracy's bowl of candy, I think.
It's almost empty, so I need to restock. Shut up, Mary Chris.
We know her too well. Yeah.
Now, Mary Chris, don't use the beat sheet.
I do. I use Save the Cat.
Oh, is that different?
I'm not sure.
I think that's all tied in.
Yeah, I think it is all tied in, and much like you were saying, I went to a session at RWA last year where I learned about Save the Cat, and I have this amazing PowerPoint presentation that I keep sort of simultaneously open with what I'm writing. But there's a book it's based on that I've never read. I feel like I should probably be more knowledgeable about it. But it breaks your novel down into 3 acts, and it breaks it down into scenes. And even though I am a pantser, I do almost use that as writing prompts. I feel like sometimes I was getting lost in my writing with a lot of. I tend to write character-driven novels, and so I was not having as much plot as I wanted or needed. And so what I find that this really helps with is making sure that I have action in every beat or in every chapter, every scene, and that works really well for me. I tried it for the first time with a novella just to kind of try it out and see how it worked in a small format. And I'm one of the things that this formula for writing is supposed to be really good at is with revisions, and the project I'm working on now is actually a giant revision of something that I had written previously, and it really is helping to bring that into shape and give it a little more focus. So that's why I say I'm sort of hybrid, because I feel like if I was truly a pantser, like it wouldn't appeal to me at all to use any kind of plotting device to help with that.
We touched on this a little bit already, but maybe we can go back and revisit. How has your method changed the more you've written? We're all kind of at different stages in our career. I'm unpublished. All of you have published works. Some of you have a lot of published works, which is very impressive. As you've written more and more, do you think that you've kind of stuck to that initial instinct, or are you seeing your writing style or your process rather change? Lachelle, you want to go first?
I don't think my process has changed at all. I'm pretty much the same I started out as. Like I said, I tried to be a pantser once upon a time and got nowhere.
Didn't go so well.
So it didn't go well at all. Didn't go well at all.
I'll jump in if Lachelle's done.
Definitely, yeah.
I found when I sat down to write my first novella, I tried to plan it, and I tried doing the whole plotting thing, and I just kept finding myself in those planning stages before I ever put one word down on the manuscript. I just couldn't plan it. I couldn't do it. So I finally just trashed all that, and I was done with it. And I was like, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to write this. And from that moment on, that's just been kind of the way things have gone for me. I'll know very basic things, but from that very beginning, I just knew that plotting and planning just wasn't going to be for me, and nothing's changed.
See, I'm just the opposite, because everything that I tried to write without planning went unfinished. So,
That's just
yeah.
insane.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually tried once before to do the plotting approach, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's just I haven't found the right story, and when I find the right story, plotting will work for me. Or I thought maybe I was just different. I really, for the longest time, thought maybe I'm the only writer in the world who doesn't follow the rules of plotting. Because I thought that maybe it was a rule. I didn't know. And I kept thinking, something must be wrong with, well, I know something's wrong with me, but I thought something was really seriously wrong with me. And so I tried the plotting thing, and it kind of blew up in my face because every day I woke up and I knew what I was going to be writing. I knew what that scene was going to be. I knew where the characters were going to go. And I hated it. I dreaded every second of writing that manuscript. And while I did finish it, it will never see the light of day again because it was so forced and it felt so forced and it reads so forced that it's crap.
That's really interesting. At least you finished it.
It wasn't genuine to me, and I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't the right process or the right book.
No, it wasn't.
I'm convinced that everybody has one of those that's just kind of lurking in the back of their mind, and they're just like, yeah, it's never going to see the light.
Oh no, that one's lurking in the dumpster. It's gone.
Yeah, it's already out.
It's gone.
How about you, Alexis? I know. I think that you and I both are kind of changing or have changed in the way that we approach writing now. What about you? Has your process changed?
Oh yeah, I love learning new things and trying new things out. I love that crap. I think that I got crap in there. I mean, come on.
You gotta let us at least have one.
I think I am a planner at heart, and I've always been a planner, but the thing that's been an interesting journey for me, especially over this last year of really intense writing, has been trying to figure out how to plan correctly. I have a stack of note cards like this for the Butterfly Rebellion, which was my NaNoWriMo project, which is still in a drawer and sad. It is in a very sad state of affairs. But
really, really want you to write it eventually, but no pressure.
I'm going to write it.
You will. You are going to write this book.
And I think this year has been very integral in me getting to that place where I can write it. Because I tried planning that puppy scene by scene. I mean, it was so planned out. It was harsh. It should be in a dumpster. That it had no feeling to it at that point, and it was cardboard writing. It was awful. But in high school especially, I was trained to be a planner, especially on the 3 acts. And I always think that way, I write that way, and I wanted to be a planner, but every time I tried to do it, it was just awful. And as you're learning about your characters, you want to change things, and then what do you do with the plot that you had? And it was a mess. It's been a turning point for me working on this anthology and having these scenes that I have to hit with my characters, and I wrote a synopsis out fairly detailed for the first time, and I loved it. And it's been a very life-changing moment, I guess, for me, and what I was missing from my planning process, and it's finally all clicked. And the book that I'm working on right now, The Unspoken Game, it's coming along so well and so fast because I've finally figured out that blend between plotting and writing in the moment.
I am very happy for you. Done. He drops the mic and walks away.
I'm done.
I think it's the dog barking actually in the background there.
I've disrupted the world.
You did. The world shifted. No, I'm glad you said that because that gives me hope. I am plotting I guess it would be a romantic suspense or a historical mystery set in the 1920s, and I'm really excited for this book. I'm really excited to write it, and very 20s obsessed right now. It's all I'm reading. But it's a mystery, so I have to kind of figure out what the foreshadowing is throughout the whole book, otherwise it's not going to read as a mystery, and that's going to be really problematic. So I'm trying my hardest to in Scrivener, have note cards, and figure out at least mystery-wise what's going to happen, because there will be a love story that goes along with it, and maybe that will be a little less planned, but that's kind of okay, and I'm letting myself be okay with that, and I'm letting myself be okay with knowing kind of who the murderer is, first of all, and kind of working backwards so that I don't end up, again, 45,000 words into this thing like, oh, I need to totally change who the murderer is because this totally doesn't make sense anymore the way that I wrote it. So it's been a learning process, and I don't know if I'm going to be quite that intense and quite that detailed with kind of the sports romances that I write, but it's been interesting, and I'm hoping that at some point I have the earth-shattering process clicking moment as well.
I think when you're writing suspense, it helps to work backwards.
Yeah, I agree, because you can kind of, in that case, you do need to know what the ending is, and you, at least in the terms of the case or the murder or the crime or whatever it is itself, because otherwise you're kind of flailing around.
Yeah, and I think to speak to your process, it's like, how do you do that? Like, do you know the end to begin with and work it in as you go through, or do you figure out the end and then go back and re-edit it in? And I think there's kind of two different ways to think about that. I have a tiny little bit of suspense in what I'm writing now, and I am really aware that I needed to know from the beginning that that was there. And I'm keeping these sort of constant notes also in Scrivener in my little note section, like, do I need to check this in this section when I go back and revise? I think a lot of like what I'm hearing us saying is it's kind of about figuring out what your process is and just being okay. Like, people keep saying, I'm okay with that. Like, I just let myself go with it. I let myself go with outlining. I let myself go with plotting. And for me, I've realized I'm just going to write a really crappy first draft, and then I'm going to go back.
Amen.
And it's my process. Like, I'm going to scrap a lot of words. I'm going to add a lot of words. I'm never going to finish a first draft and be like, woohoo, I'm going to finish a first draft and essentially be like, my outline is now done, and I'm going to go back.
It's a monster outline.
It is a monster outline, and part of me wants to, like, not do that, but I do think for me the mystery of, like, not knowing where every single thing is going every single day is what keeps me writing. And I've never tried outlining really detailed, but I think if I did, it would be even harder than it sometimes is to make myself sit down and write.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I was saying, I heard Lachelle speaking up about Scrivener a few minutes ago.
Yes. Well,
I was going to say that
how you physically do your writing and plotting and planning. So maybe this ties in with Scrivener.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I think Scrivener is really, really great if you are a plotter. I think they have a lot of tools that that really help that process.
I think Scrivener's really great even if you're not a plotter, because I'm
really
2% plotter and 98% pantser, and I still you actually got me hooked, Lachelle, on Scrivener. And
really,
for Breaking Rules, my NaNoWriMo book, would have never happened if I hadn't used Scrivener, because it kept me going and motivated to hit those word counts, and I could rearrange my scenes. And I found that after a certain point, the scenes were working. They just weren't working in the order that they were in, and it was easy for me. Instead of doing the whole copy and paste, I could just move things up and down. And so even for those of us who are smart and write by the seat of our pants,
yeah, not making that divisive at all.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love the research section. I always have a page for notes. I used to, and when I'm not around my computer, I still do have like a physical notebook that I would keep like editing notes in. So like I would know where I wanted to go back and fill things in, and I don't do that anymore. I now
yeah, she's grabbed. Mine is actually across the room, so I can't grab it right now.
I can't either. That's impressive. Mine is like
I have a few notebooks.
Mine looks more like this. It's just paper scattered all over my house.
My new favorite thing, though, is that I don't know if you can see this. It's SpringPad.
Yes.
Yes.
Are those appropriate pictures?
This is for Wyoming.
That is, put that down, young lady. There are young viewers on Tracy's account.
That's okay.
we all write varying degrees of romance or women's fiction, so you're getting some varying approaches here in terms of
this isn't even the sexy stuff.
Oh, okay, well that's good.
I imagine we have an interesting blend of watchers and viewers right
I
now.
hope so.
Yeah.
I know I have some readers as young as 9, maybe younger. So let's keep it clean, ladies.
Yes, well,
There was nothing not clean on this page.
We'll look at those pictures later. No.
It's mostly blurry.
But SpringPad is really cool because you can collaborate when you're with other authors working on something, and it's pictures and links and notes and.
What did you say that was?
It's called SpringPad.
It's like if you fused Pinterest with Google Documents. It kind of allows you to have this collaborative thing, but it's also very visual, which is really helpful. And you can draw in websites, and you can pull in pictures or notes or checklists or whatever.
Is this
I really like it.
Is this public or are you is it private? Do you have the option of making it private? Because
Yes. Yeah, okay. So I have a bunch of private boards as well, because I've started using it too.
Research. Yeah, Lexi.
Right. Especially for when I'm at work and I'm sitting there like, oh, I really need to look at garter lengths for, the 1920s. Let me just pull that in while I'm doing my my TV show.
Okay.
Part of me is very old school. I don't know if you can see this, but this is like all my cursive handwriting nobody can actually read. Like,
it's actually very
okay. Yeah,
it looks
very
pretty,
legible.
but nobody else can read it. But yeah, this is, and then I put this basically translated into Scrivener because I can do this when I'm on the subway or at work or whatever, and it's really, really helpful. So I also really hate to sound like an advertisement for the program, but I really like it a lot. And the research thing really helps if you do historical or whatever.
Right. I have a question for everybody.
Shoot.
Go for it.
We're done with that little section, because it's something that you guys have mentioned a couple times already throughout the conversation, and I keep wanting to jump in and ask, and then I forget, so I'm doing it now. What do you think is the biggest, I don't know if I want to say downfall, con, pullback, I don't know, from your approach to writing? Because, for example, every time I start to write a new manuscript or a first draft, I find myself about at that 10 to 30,000 word count, and then I'll just scrap it all, and it's gone, and I start over again, and that's when I find my stride. I'll write 10, 15, 20,000 words. I'm like, yeah, that stinks, and I start over, and to me, that's the biggest downfall because it's time wasted. That's days of work that I have just completely wasted, but in a way, I'm okay with it because I still like my writing approach, but at the same time, it's time wasted. So what, for being plotters, do you come across anything that really sucks about being a plotter, or is it all just kind of,
I suck at transitional scenes. I can tell you right now. I'm a little like Lachelle in that I can kind of see things in my head as I want them to happen, and I have a very clear. For instance, in this anthology story that I'm writing with Alexis, I can see exactly certain key points, and they are not acceptable for your viewership and your readership. I'm not going to describe them, but I know exactly what those look like, and I can kind of see them playing out very, very clearly. It's the transitional stuff that I really struggle with, and so I think that's where at least the emotional development work really helps. Mm-hmm. So I'm more inclined to do that because it's not so much getting to those major plot points, it's really the kind of how do you sustain these characters from scene to scene when you don't have these kind of big cinematic visions of what's going to happen in the scene. So.
What do I hate about my process? The thing, it's not so much about whether I'm planning, it's that I really want it to be right the first time, and it's never going to be right the first time, and I really struggle with that. And so sometimes I know what scene I'm supposed to write, and I know it's supposed to happen, and this is where the pantser element comes in, is I have to let it go and just write the dang scene, and accept the fact that it may have to get scrapped, or it may suck, or it may be perfect, it's just get over myself, I guess.
How about you, Lachelle? Anything that irks you about the way that you write?
The thing that kind of irks me is that I tend to put unreasonable word count goals on myself, maybe.
Yeah, I feel you right there.
I never had that problem.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes it's it's great. I'm on a roll and but sometimes I struggle to meet that goal each
I
day.
think that's what I learned during November, during our NaNoWriMo month, was I wanted to hit this word count every single day, and I made myself write even when I didn't want to or I couldn't, and it was not good for my psyche at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
It was brutal.
You have to, yeah.
I had the opposite effect, actually. I made myself
woman.
I made myself write those words every single day, and at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, I did it. It sucked, but I did it.
And you feel good when you do it.
And I felt great. I
Yeah.
knew that what I had put on paper was terrible, but it was okay because I did it. And now I'm off track. I have no idea what we were talking about. Being a writer.
Well, okay, we'll get right back around on you, because you asked if plotting had any down points. Does pantsering have its down points?
I already said, man, I scrap thousands of words. What are you drinking?
Yeah, that's true.
I scrap entire drafts of novels, so yes.
Are you serious?
One up to all of us.
She sticks them in drawers for years.
I do.
Yes,
I stick them in drawers, never to come back out. No, I think one of the big downfalls for me is because I don't necessarily have a clear outline, is I always have to go back and reread what I have just written. And I often have sort of an allotted amount of time that I'm going to spend on writing, and sometimes I find all that getting sucked away by fixing things in what I wrote the day before instead of moving forward. And I think that's because if I had an outline, maybe I would just sit down and write to the prompt for the day. I would just write that scene. But because I don't, I always have to sort of spend a few minutes at the beginning of my writing time getting back into what I'm writing. So I always go back and read what I've just written, usually an entire scene. And sometimes that works great, and sometimes I end up spending so much time fixing tiny little things in that scene that I'm like, wow, and a whole hour has passed and I've done nothing new. I have no word
That happens
count.
to me all the time,
Zero.
even though I plot.
I've had 2 days in a row just like that, Mary Chris. I've not written anything new in 2 days because I keep going back over what I did 3 days ago. And so, there's room to make it better, so let's make it better before I move on. And that's, so right now I'm about 7,000 words behind where I wanted to be today.
Right. And I'm kind of like, am I really making it better, or am I just getting behind? And I never really know the answer. I mean,
hopefully it's a little bit of both.
Exactly.
Both. Yeah.
And then when I later end up scrapping all of it or sticking it in a drawer, I'll know that it wasn't good.
Better than you thought.
Right.
So do you all edit as you write? Because I don't.
I do.
I do.
I edit it in acts. I kind of go back and do at least a passover of the first act, and honestly, that's more than anything so I can send pages to you, Alexis. This poor woman, for the first time, got completely unedited, completely raw pages from me, and I was just sitting there like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
Are you really
a very clean first draft writer?
Are you guys comfortable in sending first drafts to anybody? I mean, obviously you two are because you're doing Julia and Alexis.
I'm comfortable with her, but that's it. She's
because
the only
It's taken us since July.
I won't even let my mom read a first draft. Hi, Mom. I won't even let my mom read a first draft, and I won't. That's crazy.
Nate reads my first drafts, but he's read everything I've written since we were 20.
Aww.
I mean, the week we started dating, because we were in college, he started editing my stuff that week. Because he's a great editor, and I'm an anthropologist, so I had lots of research papers. Here, edit my stuff.
It was meant to be.
But he's not a man's writer, so when I met Julia, it was like, oh.
She is my romance novel heroine aha moment. Right there. Or something.
He'd be like, why did you write it this way? I'm like, it's a romance.
But yeah, I think that's definitely part of a lot of people's process. Some are totally okay with just blasting off drafts to whoever, and that's great. And
Yes.
some people
Terrifying to me.
closer to the chest, and that's great too. And again, it's just like kind of the pantsing versus plotting. It's just what you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
and maybe that changes, and maybe it doesn't change.
I am in awe of the people who can just be like, here, I wrote the scene, boom. I don't know you, but read it. I'm like, but.
Yeah.
I know. I have a friend who'll sometimes she'll send me a page or two, and she sent me something here a couple weeks ago. I still haven't read it. I'm so sorry. But I just now remembered. Okay. But I mean that she. I mean, I think it's a first draft. I may have misunderstood, but I think it's awesome that she can do that, but I could never. I'm never really truly happy with my final draft when I hit publish.
Oh,
like
no.
there's always like this I'm gonna throw up like every time I open my mouth kind of feeling. So I'm never truly happy with what I publish. So to even consider something that I wrote 2 or 3 months before that, oh no, no way. Couldn't send that off to anyone.
Yeah, I can send off second drafts, but not first drafts. I have to reread it and throw a lot of it out, and then I can send it to somebody.
I'm so scared. I'm so scared of sharing things that at one point Lexi offered to read
Yes.
breaking rules, and I was like, yeah, I'll talk to you in a few days, and I ignored her for the next 3 weeks.
I'm like, well, that was a no.
Talk to you.
I love you.
I just don't want you to read my stuff.
I just don't like you. Oh my.
I think we, you have different comfort levels, and you get to know people, and maybe one day you'll trust me with a first draft.
It's actually not that I didn't trust you. It wasn't even a first draft. It was just this. I think it was this overwhelming. I am in awe of you, and I don't want to send my work to someone who. You intimidate me a little bit.
Oh.
I was a little scared.
Live on the internet.
This is my love confession, Lexi. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a little.
Sorry here.
Shut up.
I'm actually speechless.
I don't know. So it wasn't that I didn't trust you. It was just that I was scared sending. I mean, I have a
Fangirl moment.
I have a handful of people that I would never send. I would never send you guys a first or second draft. None of you.
Whereas I'm just like,
We love you too, Tracy.
Okay, group hug, everybody. Bring it in.
bring it in. All right, we're getting silly and hitting like the 45-minute mark. So do you want to?
Yes.
Does anybody have any last thoughts on pantsing, plotting, and then we'll kind of do some endorsements and pitching to our lovely viewers. Which, by the way, people are commenting and
Yes. Do we
you
have
guys are
any
wonderful.
questions?
Oh yeah, because I'm not watching.
We've actually had a lot of input about kind of what people use to plot. Elizabeth talks about James Scott Bell's Conflict and Suspense, which I actually would love to check out, and maybe you'd like it too, Mary Chris. She says she tends to write character-driven fiction, and she really struggled with plot, so this really helped her out. And then Jessica talks a little bit about kind of her process as well. So those comments are on the event page, and I know I'm going to go back and look at them as well. I will be posting up a link.
Okay.
I have a Twitter comment from Jess who says that she scraps entire novels too. So thank you, Jess.
Wow.
Feel human and like that's normal. So thank you.
Yes, I have one of those too. So that makes me feel better that we're kind of all in the same boat here, or at least some of us.
I think the only kind of final comment I have is that I don't think there's one right way, and I think that's what, like, all of us talking about this, we all love what we do, we all are happy to some extent. I agree, I'm never totally happy with a final draft, but we're happy with what we're doing, we enjoy the process, and there's not a right way to do it. And I think a little bit of what's come out in this is that what is really important is just doing it, like sitting down and doing it, whatever that means to you, whether it's having an elaborate outline, whether it's having no outline at all and throwing away lots of what you write. There's not a right way. The only wrong thing is not to sit down and do it.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Anybody want to follow that?
The one thing I picked up on, and it was Mary Chris who said it first, I think, again, because she's just full of the eloquence tonight. You rock. Whatever it is that drives you to actually sit down every day and keep writing, but keeps that magic alive for you and those characters alive for you, whether it is plotting or it's flying by the seat of your pants, give into it and do it, because you have to sit down and keep writing, and you don't want to kill that process for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice quiet moment.
It was.
I think Julia's quiet. Can you hear her?
I see her talking.
I see the lips moving, but I hear nothing. Whoa, yeah. We see you, we don't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Please don't leave this to us. We will ruin it.
Well, it's time to wrap things up, as Julia would say.
Julia doesn't sound like a man.
First word, short word.
We got nothing,
Time to
dog.
wrap it up. Okay, we should go around the room and do our quick end. Is that
Wrap
it?
up.
Yes, no, maybe. Oh,
She says
chat
wrap up.
messages.
Yeah. Wrap up.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with Lachelle. Wrap it up. Give us your endorsements. What books do you have out?
Oh, I currently have 2 series out at the moment, the Pierce Trilogy and the Jagged Ivory series, and I just started work on a new series.
Awesome. Mary Chris?
Well, as referenced earlier, I currently have a novel called Never Ending Beginnings that is out, as well as a novella, Delayed. My novella right now is free at Smashwords, so
Yes.
You can check out my website below my name here and click on my book page, and if you choose to purchase that book through Smashwords, my novella is free this week, and my novel is half off. It is Read an eBook Week. I think that Lachelle also has some specials in that, as does
I do.
Alexis.
Yep.
Yes, so be sure to check out all of our Smashwords pages for some excellent deals, possibly even some free books.
Take it away, Tracy.
Okay. So instead of sitting here and endorsing, all of my series, you can just check out all of what I do have available on my website, because I want to talk about something else really quick. I'm celebrating my 25th birthday on Thursday. Celebration of turning a quarter century old. I'm asking all of my readers to help me celebrate this in a really huge way, and that's just by purchasing my paperbacks, because from this whole entire month, from March 1st until March 31st, I'm actually going to give away 100% of my paperback proceeds to charity. So that would be like the best birthday present of all, to have my readers actually have their hands on my books and to be able to take that money and do something really great with it. So buy books, buy my books, paperbacks, go do it.
You're awesome, Tracy. As for me, Alexis Ann, I write erotic romance, and I have The Storm Inside out now, which is free at Smashwords during Read and eBook Week. Julie's going to show you a oh, my sequel, Reflected in the Rain, is out now also. It is also half off at Smashwords this week, and The Storm Inside is 99 cents everywhere until I change the price because I'm lazy. And that's me. Julia, who is quiet right now, is currently unpublished, but she has an awesome book out right now with her agent, which will hopefully get picked up soon.
It will.
Anything else you want to say, Julia?
Follow me on Twitter.
No.
I got nothing.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight on Plotters versus Pansters. We hope you enjoyed talking with us. First Draft tries to meet the second Tuesday or first Tuesday of every month. We haven't quite figured it out. So make sure you stay up to date with us on Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere else. And we will have another chat very soon. And maybe Lachelle and Tracy will join us again. Yes? No? Maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
1,000 times.
Well, thank you guys. Have a great night.